It's a hard Knicks life for the Knicks owner. What's up? This is EJ Stewart, joined by Tommy Beer. This is Orange and Blue Bloods, a New York Knicks podcast and Audacy WFAN original. We have plenty to get to on this show. We will be talking about this very widespread, wide-ranging interview that James Dolan, the Knicks owner, did with the New York Times, talking about his displeasure, quite frankly, with being the Knicks owner. So we'll talk about all the things he said in this New York Times article. We'll also talk about a very interesting conversation about Giannis Antetokounmpo. It seems like the Knicks are indeed closely monitoring, the words used by Ian Begley, what's going on in Milwaukee. Giannis continues to kind of chirp about maybe he's not as committed to the Bucks as maybe Bucks fans want him to be. So we'll give you the latest on that as well. And we've been calling the Knicks the CAA Knicks pretty much since Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson and Derrick Rose and Noel and all these guys that have joined the Knicks. Of course, Tom Thibodeau, all becoming members of the Knicks since, of course, Leon Rose's hiring as Knicks president. Well, one major factor or major point of those Knicks CAA jokes is apparently leaving the agency. So what does that mean for the player's future? What does that mean for the Knicks' future? We'll talk about all that in a very important update on the podcast coming up right after this.
If your blood runs orange and blue, this is the pod for you. You're listening to Orange and Blue Bloods, hosted by EJ Stewart and Tommy Beer. Let's get to it, New York.
So like I said, this is Orange and Blue Bloods. EJ Stewart, Tommy Beer coming at you. And we got plenty to talk about today, Tommy. And I'm excited to get to these topics because this is a much different podcast than the last podcast we had where we're leading with Ryan Archidiakono. Pretty big stuff on today's episode. But we have maybe even bigger news than the news that's on this episode. So I want you, Tommy, to get to take the floor. And then first of all, how you doing and what's up?
Sure. Yes, doing well. But yes, as EJ teased, unfortunately, my time on the pod is winding down. Speaking with the guys this week, I just kind of, with the school year starting, and as I explained to them, it's just kind of some family stuff that's coming up. Taking my son and daughter both to school, picking them both up. And as you guys know, family first, all that good stuff. So yes, as I explained to EJ and our producer Jim, this has been such an incredible experience, and I loved every minute of it. And I wish I could continue, but I know going forward that I wouldn't be able to really devote 100% of myself. And that's exactly what EJ deserves and the pod deserves. So you guys will be in good hands, certainly going forward. Pod isn't going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. I'll be around. I'll hop on from time to time. I think we're going to try to keep it in the family in terms of another co-host. We'll see how it all plays out. Obviously, you guys will be in the loop. But yeah, love you guys. Love all you guys. I'll be back next week as well. And like I said, this is just kind of a stepping away, not breaking up. Just just a little bit of space, a little bit of time as I figure things out on my end. And we'll be in touch, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's obviously, sad news. This show we've had together, Tommy, has been phenomenal. I think that a lot of the Knicks fans who have listened have enjoyed. And look, I cannot say enough, again, how great Tommy's been on the show, professionalism, the content, and just overall really becoming a friend. This is someone that I admired in this industry for so long, and to be able to work with them and to get to know Tommy the way I have over this last year has been outstanding. So I'm very sad to see him go, but knowing how much Tommy is devoted to his family and loves his family, I cannot gripe or moan or complain at all about Tommy stepping away from the show. I appreciate the kind words about the show moving forward. And yes, the show's not going anywhere. The show will still happen in the same times it's supposed to happen. I'll be holding down the fort. There will be a co-host at some point in time. We'll have to figure out when. Hopefully it's soon. If it's not soon, I'll still be holding down the fort. We'll have plenty of guests over the course of these however many weeks or months it is. But yes, it's sad to see Tommy go. And we'll have a farewell episode next week. We have 2 more episodes with Tommy after today. So we'll have this one, and then we'll have a normal-ish episode, and then we'll have a farewell episode, barring any crazy breaking news from the Knicks, the following episode after that. So again, I can't thank Tommy enough, and we'll have more of the thank yous and the goodbyes for the later episodes, but we did want to make sure you guys were up to date on the future of Orange and Blue Bloods in that regard. So anyway, this is Orange and Blue Bloods, again, New York Knicks podcast, Audacy, WFAN, an original podcast you get wherever you get your podcasts, including the free Audacy app. Be sure to hit the auto download feature on your streaming service to get these episodes every time we drop. And be sure also check us out on YouTube as well. You can find us on the WFAN channel. We post the full episodes and shorts from the episodes on that channel. And wherever you're watching us or listening to us, whether it be on YouTube, whether it be on any of the audio streaming services, make sure you give us a like, make sure you give us 5 stars on the audio platforms, and make sure you give a comment and a review on how you're digging the podcast. So let's continue and let's get to some of this big stuff we had this week. So first, it's a hard Knicks life again for Knicks owner James Dolan, who told the New York Times he does not enjoy owning the New York Knicks. So in a sprawling profile by the New York Times that covers everything from the makings of the MSG Sphere in Las Vegas, the use of facial recognition technology, and the banning of lawyers and other people at Madison Square Garden, James Dolan admitted that owning the Knicks does not bring him much joy. He said while the Knicks and Rangers are, quote, near and dear to his heart, he, quote, does not like owning teams. He lamented the mentality of New York sports fans at one point, saying basically every fan thinks of themselves as an owner or a general manager. This was actually after an interaction with a fan that went up to him at a non-Knicks event, but I guess with the guy with his fan, said, "Let's go Knicks." And Dolan kind of like rolled his eyes and kind of just was like, "Oh, yes, I understand. Yes, I'm a Knicks owner." So, and when asked, how does he feel about this? This was essentially his response, saying that every fan thinks that they're a general manager or an owner. Now, Dolan also claimed the economics of owning an NBA team or an NHL team are kind of sleepy, are the words he used. He said it actually kept him from buying baseball and soccer teams. It makes me actually wonder if maybe he was in line by the Mets, but that's maybe another story for the Rico Brogna podcast by Evan Roberts. But anyway, Dolan adds, being a professional sports owner in New York, you're not beloved until you're dead, is his quote. So Dolan, among other things, also explained his rationale for ejecting people and banning people from Madison Square Garden who tell him to sell the team or do chants that say sell the team or post signs that say sell the team when they're at Madison Square Garden. Dolan said MSG has a code of conduct that forbids harassment of Garden employees, for which he claims to be one of them. Very interesting. He considers himself an employee when he owns the building. Also interesting that apparently, according to the New York Times, there actually is no code of conduct message that says that you can't harass Garden employees. So I don't know where he got that from. And then lastly, he said, look, if you held up a sign that says, play better, this team sucks, you can do that. That's part of being a fan. But zeroing in on criticism of him, he says, is not allowed and bad because it is harassment of an individual, not of the team. So a lot being said by James Dolan. I ask you, Tommy, what do you think of James Dolan's comments, and why do you think he still owns the Knicks if he says that it's not all that joyful?
I tweeted that there are first world problems, right? And then there are, owning a couple $1 billion franchises can be a little bit annoying sometimes, like it's not that much fun, it's another example of how Dolan just doesn't read the room, buddy. This is a lot of people struggling economically, financially. And that's not to suggest that everyone with wealth is automatically happy and they can't suffer from difficulties and et cetera. And Dolan has been open about his addiction issues and overcoming them. So credit to him for that. But again, that being said, it's hard to, to listen to somebody complain about, his daddy gave him the Knicks. You're not really allowed to complain. If it's something that you don't enjoy doing, sell the team. There are plenty of other, interested individuals that would happily put together a financial package. Obviously he doesn't need, the answer to your question is as to why he doesn't sell the Knicks is because he doesn't need the money, and he clearly enjoys it. I think more than he kind of lets on. I think he enjoys the power that comes from it. Exactly. A lot of the other businesses are back end, and there's not the high visibility of it. If all these sentiments were true, there's not a lot of owners that sit front row center underneath the basket. There's a Cuban and some others, but they like the spotlight. They enjoy the
Yeah.
celebrity. They enjoy the attention. There's plenty of other owners that you never see them at the games, never see them with their arms folded or crossed or causing a controversy. So there's a lot here that Dolan says that I don't agree with. Again, it's sort of neither here nor there from a Knicks perspective. As I have said on this pod and in years going back and back, the Knicks have a lot of problems, and Dolan, you can trace the Knicks' lack of success this century to Dolan's ownership of the team. That being said, he's not worried about luxury tax. He's not looking to turn a profit. He's willing to spend as much money as the people in charge, the people that he's hired, tell him to. His issue has been hiring people, the wrong people for the most important jobs. And then even when those people show themselves to not be successful in that role, the Isaiah Thomases, et cetera, keeping them in those positions. So that's kind of where the situation from my end, his words don't necessarily match his actions.
Yeah, it's funny. I think you hit the nail right in the head when you said he enjoys the power. I think that's why he likes owning it, why he still owns it, whether he likes it or not. I think that there's a part in there where they talk about why does he show such a willingness to fight, and his thing was like, well, if you show a willingness to fight, it lets people know that essentially not to mess with you, and that's why he's willing to make even the pettiest of fights go all the way to the lengths, because maybe in his eyes avoids the bigger fights. I don't know. He's had he lost a $10 million lawsuit to Anuka Brown Simpson. So I mean, that seems pretty big. And to your point about hiring the wrong people, here he still is on this thing about how the Madison Square Garden was wrong, and he was wronged in a verdict that basically confirmed that there was sexual harassment of an employee, especially in this time and day and age. Very disheartening, to say the least. I think in terms of him owning the Knicks, this is the first time, I think, for me, that I really think that this is this is no longer a just for the foreseeable future thing that he's going to be the owner. I actually do think that he will end up selling this team 10 years, maybe. I don't know. I just don't. This to me just doesn't seem like something that he's going to want to just keep and hold on to until he's dead. I mean, the fact that he even said that, people only love you until you're dead. I think that's him, I think, saying that he's thought about like what his life looks like for the rest of his life as Knicks owner. And he realized that there's nothing that will be good for him in terms of how he is viewed. And I'd argue that maybe that's not true. I think if he won a championship, I think that a lot of the criticism, a lot of the debate a lot of that would definitely come to a simmer. It may not go completely away. Again, there have been true wrongs done by Madison Square Garden, but you win a championship in Madison Square Garden in New York City, especially with the Knicks. I mean, you're an icon. It doesn't matter who you are, how you did it, or what your transgressions were before. I do think, though, that this was kind of him kind of dipping his toe in the idea that, like, this is not something I really enjoy, and I don't know how much longer I'm going to be willing to do this. And we've seen those, like, rumblings from, like, the Bill Simmons of the world and other people that keep saying the word amongst the billionaires is that, like, the Knicks will be for sale at some point. But then, like, James Dolan comes out and just quelches that. I can't imagine that Simmons and these other folks are hearing that from nowhere. They got to be getting it from somebody. So I think I think we learned what maybe Bill Simmons and all these other people know is that these people in the billionaire circles knows how much James Dolan dislikes the things that come with owning the Knicks, and they're surmising that he'll eventually sell a team. And listening to him in this, I think that he will as well. Now, he's not going to give him Madison Square Garden. That's never going to happen because it prints money. Yeah. But I think the ownership of the teams, and we saw that separation between MSG Sports and MSG Entertainment happen a couple of years ago. I think that is coming down the pipe. Again, it's not imminent, but this idea that he's going to own the team till he's dead, that's not going to happen. I don't think.
That's a really good point, EJ. I hadn't thought of is if the Knicks win, and the Knicks are right now obviously trending in the right direction, and they're for the first time in 20 plus years, you can see a path, and we'll talk about the Giannis stuff in a couple minutes. You can see whether it's Embiid or Giannis or Luka, maybe there's a path to the Knicks, like already at like level 1.5 to get to level 3, to become one of those elite, top tier teams. It's not laughable right now, which is the first time you can say that for the first time in a long time. And if the Knicks ever won or were competitive, back-to-back finals appearances, Eastern Conference finals appearance, then an NBA finals appearance, that changes the whole feel of the, like a lot of the, vibe around the team is, and the the hatred towards Dolan has been because the team has been so bad, and he's kind of been the poster child that people can kind of direct their arrow. The one constant, bad coaching and GMs and players come and go, but the owner's been the same. So he's felt that heat and that hatred for 20 plus years. Knicks start winning on a consistent basis and winning big and start being really competitive for titles. That would change the experience entirely, and that may change the way he views the experience.
And I think we've even seen some of that even in just this last year. I mean, when this article came out, you mentioned on the podcast, look, he does spend a lot and all. You'll mention the positives. I saw people on Twitter when this article came out saying, yes, Dolan doesn't like the Knicks and he may be kind of a sourpuss sometimes, but he does invest in the team. The team's in the right direction. You really can't say many bad things about him right now. Winning cures a lot, and this is a man that suffered through a lot of losing for 20 years. So I can't imagine that it's that fun to deal with this stuff, because it's only been a miserable experience since he's been the owner. Now, that could change once they start winning, and if it becomes a constant thing, maybe that does change perspective. But I almost wonder, there's a part of me that thinks that Dolan may want to go out on top, that he may want to win that championship. And at that point, of course, the Knicks would be at their highest value. And I mean, guess a number. It could be anything at that point. If the Knicks win a championship and then he decides, okay, I'm going to put the team up for sale. I could see him saying, I'm going to win a championship. All right, I've done all I ever will want to do doing this thing. I'm not going to give it to somebody else. That is a scenario I could definitely see happening.
I mean, if they ever won the championship, imagine for his last 20 years, for his life, essentially, his adult life, he's had to slink in. He's gone to the fanciest restaurants and had the best food, but he's had to go in the back door. And, I'm sure he's had to have security around him so he doesn't get, not, physically stuff, but heckled and harassed, and, just annoyed to a certain extent. If he walked into a popular restaurant after the Knicks won the championship, there would be a standing ovation. He'd be clapping.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. If he goes to the Carbone after the Knicks win the championship, I mean, the place is going to erupt. Yeah. So it's a whole different idea and landscape for him. So James Dolan, it's just one thing about Dolan before we move on is that just for someone who doesn't talk very much, when he talks, he gives you everything. And from a media standpoint, you gotta love him for that. There's a lot of owners who talk all the time and don't say anything. Jerry Jones is a guy who talks all the time and he really doesn't give a lot. He kind of does the same old kind of golly shucks kind of stuff. And every now and then he'll give you something. But that guy talks every day, literally every day. And he doesn't give you much. James Dolan talks once, sometimes every 2-3 years, sometimes once every 6-7 months. And he's saying, I'm banning alcohol and MSG. I don't like owning the Knicks. Yes, facial recognition stuff works. He's saying the craziest stuff. And, as a Knicks fan, it kind of leaves you on edge because, he could swallow a grenade any moment and then say something that really hurts the team. But again, from a media standpoint, he does not, he's emptying the clip every time he talks in front of a microphone. It is very interesting. But we talk about the future of this Knicks team and those championship aspirations that may be a lot closer than we think. Giannis watch is on at Knicks headquarters. SNY's Ian Begley says Knicks are closely monitoring the situation in Milwaukee as Giannis Antetokounmpo continues to say that his commitment to the Bucks is only conditional on the rest of the organization matching his obsession with winning a championship. He actually said this most recently, I believe it was last week, on the 48 Minutes podcast on Believe Network. Here was Giannis on his future with the Bucks.
As long as we play and we approach the game every single day the right way and we all sacrifice for a common goal, I can see myself being in Milwaukee Bucks for the rest of my career. But the moment I feel like people are not committed as I am to get that golden thing in the back, I am not. I'm a Milwaukee Buck, but most importantly, I'm a winner. I want to win, and I have to do whatever it takes for me to win. And if there's a better situation for me to win the Larry O'Brien, I have to take that better situation.
Giannis sending out the bat signal to the rest of the league saying, hey, if it means I got to go somewhere else to win championship, I'll do it. So Ian writes, the Knicks could put together a solid trade offer for Giannis. They own the rights to 4 future first-round picks and have all of their own future first-rounders moving forward. They have players signed to reasonable contracts. He also adds, I assume the Knicks have a good idea of where they stand if Antetokounmpo becomes available via trade, and that Leon Rose will, quote, have Giannis in mind when making future deals. That is a summation from Ian Bagley and how he views the situation. Shout out to Ian Bagley, of course. He's been a guest on the podcast. Do you think it's a smart approach? Because we talked about several of we've attached this Giannis. We've talked about this Giannis conversation in several fronts. One thing I think we haven't talked about so much is it a smarter approach to potentially hold off on other deals, or perhaps maybe think about make moves with the thought of Giannis coming in? Is that even a smart approach for the Knicks, given some of their past issues with making moves in this way and then coming up empty-handed?
Yeah, I think you have to. I think and respect to Ian, for the article, but we talked about it. It was last month or earlier this month when that Times article dropped, and and if it wasn't, maybe Leon Rose and company had caught wind that that this was potentially Giannis is thinking behind the scenes through back channels. I don't know, but we know. And it's even one thing if they have faith and that's kind of that's going to be on the radar. But when he comes out and says as strongly as he did that, listen, either you build a championship roster around me here in Milwaukee, or I'm leaving. If we don't have a chance to win that golden thing, as he says, like, I'm out. That's obviously a lot of superstars do it, but Giannis is almost cut from a different cloth in terms of loyalty and his backstory and everything. So he was one of those guys that I could have envisioned. It's not a stretch to envision him going the Dirk route, the Kobe route, where he stays with one team, his entire career. But him putting the Bucks on notice like that was a really strong step, and that the Knicks can't help. They would be derelict in their duty if they didn't really take special attention to that and focus on that. And it's going to come sooner rather than later, because Giannis 3 years left on his deal, but he said he's not going to sign an extension. Tomorrow is actually the day in which he's eligible to sign that extension. He said he's not going to do it this offseason. So then you're looking at after this season, the summer of 2024. And if he doesn't sign an extension, then do the Bucks play Russian roulette and have him on essentially what would be an expiring contract?
Yeah.
Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I just wouldn't say, if I'm a Bucks fan, I'm very nervous about, because if you trade him for 4 future first round picks and quickly and Mitchell Robinson and Grimes, then you have something to build with. If you lose him in free agency, your franchise is done. So all that stuff is kind of baked into the cake here. But to directly answer your question, listen, you hold off on a deal for Embiid? I don't think so. Like, if you can get Embiid, you do it. But if it's for one of those lesser players, then maybe you hold back. And one thing I thought of reading the rundown for the sheet, it's something we've talked about and mentioned in the past 6 months, year or so. The Knicks' decision not to trade for Donovan Mitchell looks better by the day.
It does. It absolutely does. And it's, again, another one of those moves where people want to yell LOL Knicks. And I've seen nothing to make me say that they should have made that trade, given what has happened since that trade happened. Mitchell had a great year with the Cavs, of course, but Knicks bounced them in the first round. Knicks now still have all their assets, and now there appear to be better players that are potentially going to spring free and potentially also want to play for the Knicks. So I can't say that was a bad.
And Mitchell can hit free agency in a couple of years.
Yeah, and by the way, you could also may still get Donovan Mitchell and not have to give up anything for him. Yep. So a lot of good things moving in the right direction for the Knicks. Like, I think you're right that with certain players, you do have to kind of say, okay, look, if this thing is real and it looks like it may be with Giannis, then we got to definitely be mindful of that when we make other moves. I also think this Knicks team can definitely afford to do this more than previous teams. Because remember, before, when we're talking about the summer of 2010 with LeBron, you're talking about a team that was like bad, stripping it down and saying, all right, we're going to basically have nothing on the books from a team that already was not good, not a playoff team, and hope that people want to come here. Yeah,
the key difference then is, okay, we'll get the superstar, and then we'll get all this other stuff around. The Knicks have all the other stuff around it. Now they just need the superstar.
Yes, with Kevin Durant, it's like, all right, we'll trade Porzingis, and we'll have basically the worst team in the NBA. But if we get the number 1 pick, and then KD will just come here, like that was truly a game of Russian roulette. That was a high stakes gamble that both times crapped out, spectacularly. This is a different situation because the Knicks are a much better team now. So you're not saying, all right, well, like we don't trade for Giannis, or we don't trade for not Giannis. Let's say we don't trade for Zach LaVine. We don't trade for one of these other guys, like Karl-Anthony Towns. That means that we're going to be a bottom feeder. Like the Knicks are already a playoffs caliber team.
Yep.
They're already a team that can advance in the playoffs. So you don't need to make what I think would be desperate moves for guys who aren't those caliber of players. Talking about the Giannis's, the Embiids. You don't need to make those kind of moves when you have what you have in store with the team you have. I think that changes the whole landscape for how you would approach Giannis flirting with leaving Milwaukee the way he has.
Totally. And again, the Knicks were, a couple possessions away in Game 6 from forcing a Game 7 against the team that advanced to the Eastern Conference Finals. And this team, as currently constituted, with now DiVincenzo. So, again, you have all those other pieces in place. So, and we talked about it before, why they shouldn't trade for the Levines and Towns. You bring up two perfect examples of things that the Knicks in the past would have been desperate
to
get any superstar for the sake of getting a superstar. Yeah. Now they can hold all their assets for the right superstar that can take them from really good team to championship team.
Yep. Now, when it comes to the CAA Knicks, as we've called them many times over the past few years, they lost a key member that now has some wondering what the future may hold for one two-time All-Star. So Julius Randle announced he is joining WME. It is a reunion for Julius Randle with a former CAA agent, Andrew Thomas, who used to represent him. He will now represent Randle with WME. This gentleman, Thomas, joined WME in February of 2022. The Knicks, of course, have strong ties with Creative Arts Agency, given its team president, Leon Rose. His former role was head of basketball with the company. And the Knicks have signed various players. They've traded for various players who have been CAA clients. When Cam Reddish was belly aching, some of the stuff you heard from Clutch Sports was this idea that maybe that Knicks favored other agencies than others. Of course, Jalen Brunson, their best player, currently a CAA client. One key Knicks player who is represented by WME is RJ Barrett, and the agency negotiated Barrett's 4-year, $107 million contract extension, $120 million potentially if he meets certain requirements. Randle has 2 more guaranteed years left on his contract before having a player option for 2026. So, Tommy, little deal, big deal, or no deal that Randle left CAA?
Yeah, I'd probably go middle deal. Listen, it doesn't automatically mean that he's going to demand a trade as soon as the ink is dry on his new representation. But it's also not insignificant because, listen, we know about the connections between CAA and the Knicks, and they're, Brunson and Tibbs and Johnny Bryant and, Rick Brunson and so Isaiah Hartenstein. So to say that it's irrelevant would be probably a mischaracterization, because remember, Randle has just 2 years left on his deal, so they can start talking extension, as early as this season, next summer. Then these conversations are going to take place. Does that mean that, Leon Rose won't offer him extension because he decides, who's no longer with CAA?
Right.
It happens a lot. It happens frequently with players and entertainers. We thought once OG Anunoby signed with CAA, automatically he's going to be a Knick. Then there's a fallout. So there's a million other things that can happen.
Yeah.
So it's worth mentioning. It's a factor, and it could be a factor in, the comfort level and familiarity, and the conversations regarding extensions, etc. But it's certainly not a deal breaker or anything that, we should jump to any conclusions about.
Yeah, I'm going to say little deal. I'm not going to say big deal. It is interesting. It is interesting. I mean, and maybe it's just a figment of our own imagination to some degree that, we've followed this CAA Knicks connection since really it precedes Leon Rose. Actually, it's it goes back to the Glenn Grunwald days where like he was signing all these CAA clients, and there was this word that it seems like the Knicks have this thing with CAA. We don't know what's going on. So I don't know. Maybe it's a Dolan thing. Maybe, who knows? But either way, the Knicks CAA stuff has been a long time thing. So to see a player like Julius Randle, who is coming up with a contract extension potentially due, and the Knicks flirting with all these other big name guys who may be on the trade market, and he changes agencies from what we think is the Knicks' favorite agency. It is interesting. Now, I think when you piece together some of the details, you say, all right, well, the guy that he's signing with is a former CAA agent.
Yep.
I don't know if that means he has a good relationship with Rose or not, but I assume that they did work together and that maybe that would be fine. Maybe it's just that he has a certain rapport with this guy. And then when you add that RJ Barrett, got his extension essentially working with this agency, maybe is, Randall looking at what RJ got and saying,
Right.
all right, I like how they worked with that, especially given there was so much kind of uncertainty about if RJ was going to be on the team. Because remember, they were negotiating trades with RJ Barrett during that same time. Maybe he liked how the Knicks handled that. I don't know why you would, but I guess maybe he liked that. And maybe he's saying, well, I'll look at what they did and maybe they help me out because I may be in that same situation. Like next summer when the Knicks are going after Giannis or when they're going after Joel Embiid and my name's floated in trade talks, I want to be able to also have productive contract extension talks because as Randall, he says a lot, he likes being a Knick. I don't know how much he loves New York, but he likes being a Knick. Right. So that could be some of this too. I mean, I can't think of any extensions that CAA has actually negotiated with the Knicks since those guys have come here. Like they re-signed Rose and some of those other guys, but like those weren't extensions. So I don't. This is a different ball game, and maybe Randall's playing it strategically that way.
Yeah, again, let's not. Their players switch agencies all the time, so this is obviously, and there's going to be conflicts of interest. Leon Rose's son Sam represents Obi Toppin. So like there's, and they still find a way to work together. I'm sure they're going to have Thanksgiving dinner together, etc. So at the end of the day, it is a business and both parties are going to do what's best for both parties. So, I wouldn't go crazy about it.
Yes, it wouldn't go crazy, but definitely noteworthy. And I think every Knicks fan that saw this thing go down was like, as you said, it's like that Miranda Cosgrove meme of her with the cup drinking at the laptop, looking at it just like,
yep,
interesting. I think that's what everyone thought, or the wind horse, the finger points. So we'll continue to follow what's going to happen with Julius Randle, but he does have a new agency, and I think we will have to continue to see if that impacts his future with the Knicks. But that's going to do it for this edition of Orange and Blue Bloods. So thank you guys for checking us out. Of course, if you like this episode, you can catch this episode wherever you get your podcasts, including the free Audacy app. Make sure you hit the auto download feature on your streaming service to get these episodes every time we drop. Also, be sure to check us out on YouTube. You can find us on the WFAN channel and the WFAN channel where you'll find us on YouTube. We have full episodes. We have shorts from the episode posted on there. So if you want to watch the podcast as opposed to listening to it or listen to it and then watch the podcast, you can head over to the YouTube channel to do that. Tommy, let the people know where they can find you.
At Tommy Beer on Twitter, and make sure you subscribe to that What's on Tap newsletter, Substack newsletter.
Yes, make sure you definitely do that. I'm EJ_Stewart on Twitter, Action EJ on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. Thank you guys again so much for checking us out. For Tommy, I'm EJ. Take it easy, guys. Peace. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below.
Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest podcast ventures. Links will be in the descriptions. And as always, thanks for watching, and we will see you in our next video.